am Gail Jacobs, and what you see right now is a very clear picture of a boundary that we have had in place, and I'm not going to leave that on because it's horribly uncomfortable. I am part of the support and recovery team here at Life Point, and I have taught boundaries for a while. And I would like to talk a little bit today about boundaries as far as Life Point recovery. So, what a perfect time we have right now for talking about boundaries. If you think of most recently all the boundaries that have been put in place for us. So we have face masks, we have limits on social contact, we have plexiglass in stores. And all of these boundaries, limitations, are measures that are meant to protect our physical health from possible harm. And boundaries we can see are really easy to understand. So the Great Wall of China, border walls, checkpoints, TSA, at the airport, no trespassing signs, the door to the bathroom in our home or other places. These are meant to give us a sense of safety and security. So think for a moment of the boundaries that we have every day. Our skin and our skeleton, those are boundaries that hold our guts in. We wear clothing when we go out for modesty, primarily. We set limitations with personal space and touch, especially now. Who do you kiss? Who do you hug? Who do you shake hands with? Who do you let in your personal space? Right now, probably no one. We also have intellectual boundaries, so thoughts and ideas that are ours and maybe not the same as others. We're experiencing a lot of that now. Emotional boundaries refer to our feelings. So when to share, when not to share. We've all probably been in the presence of someone that we've just met that has overshared, and how sometimes frightening and confusing that can be, or been in long-term relationships with people that really don't share much of anything and keep themselves hidden from us. So when someone shares their material boundaries with us or wants us to share our material boundaries with them, if we just meet someone in the morning, do we let them borrow our car in the afternoon? So trying to figure out when it's okay for someone to cross a boundary and when it's not. Then we have our time and energy boundaries, and a lot of times this is really a problem in the church, is who do I donate my time and energy to? I have a limited amount of hours in the day and a limited amount of emotional energy as well as physical time. Who do I allow to take my time and energy in order for me to live the life that I want to live? So let's think in terms of boundaries. Suppose you had a neighbor whose dog used your front lawn for the bathroom. So you decide, I don't really want to talk to the neighbor about it. I'm just going to put up a 3-foot fence around my boundary, an obvious boundary. Then one day you look out your window and you see the neighbor lifting the dog over the fence so they can go to the bathroom on your lawn. You set the boundary, and not only did they ignore it, they intentionally violated it. So perhaps it was just ignorance before and them not watching their dog. But now it's an intentional violation of your space. Anger begins to build, resentment sets in, and next thing you know, you're not talking to them. You're plotting ways for their dog to disappear. Then you feel guilty. It's just a dog. How would he know? The emotions become overwhelming and you start to lose sleep over it, plotting. Next thing you realize, you're having some very un-Christ-like thoughts about them. Your feelings are telling you something's wrong. But how do you attend to the problem without ruining your spirit life? So many times as Christians, we question ourselves when we start to feel violated. Am I too sensitive? What if I hurt someone's feelings while trying to protect my own? Aren't I supposed to be patient and kind and enduring of long suffering? Often our fear of conflict, shame, embarrassment, rejection, hurting someone's feelings, a need to be liked, can all keep us from setting appropriate limits with others. But even Jesus set clear boundaries with people, and he is clear in his word about how we're to set boundaries as well. Some of them are examples are taking time out to be with his Father, time for prayer, meditation, self-reflection, withdrawing from the daily demands of life to replenish our souls. He rejected the manipulation of the Pharisees, trying to bait him with questions, and instead asked them questions of his own. He said no to his disciples that wanted him to be a warrior or a political king. He spoke the truth firmly and with love. He had expectations of people to do their part, not rescuing people from the responsibility or ownership of their problem. He taught us to, when people were in need, he would ask them, "What do you want?" The two blind men called out to him for help from Jericho Road, and he said, "What do you want me to do for you?" They had to ask for what they needed, and they needed to trust him in order to do that. When he was with the person at the pool, "Do you want to get well?" He was feeling helpless and sorry for himself. He expected someone to fix his problem, and Jesus challenged him, "Do you want to get well? Get up, pick up your mat, and walk." It was up to him to be motivated to take responsibility for himself. When the father sought deliverance for his son, who was mute and had seizures, and said to Jesus, "If you can do anything, take pity on us and help us." And Jesus put it right back on the father. If you can, everything is possible for him who believes. The father needed to believe that Jesus could cure his son. So how does this play out today? Some examples of boundary violation in the lives of people most often take the place in relationships. A spouse that's physically or verbally abusive, an adult child that lives at home and refuses to get a job or help around the house, a family member that continues to abuse drugs or alcohol while shirking responsibility, people that try to make you responsible for something that their job is. These are the things I most often hear in boundary class. And the end result is resentment, self-sabotage, burnout, and staying hidden. Who we are, we keep hidden from others, which affects our ability to have genuine intimacy with people. Not being who God created us to be in an effort to cover for and take responsibility for others. And our ongoing anger is unproductive. So how do we develop healthy boundaries? First of all, we need to pay attention to our feelings. Probably the best indicator of a boundary violation is anger and resentment. And they start to build. It doesn't mean letting the feelings override you. Paying attention doesn't mean reacting, which will defeat the purpose if you set limits out of rage and anger. What it means is, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this? What has triggered this? How have I been violated? If someone steals something from you, that's a direct violation. It's really easy to see that. I'm missing that piece. But when there's a piece of our soul that's stolen or we give away in an effort to please others by not setting a boundary or by avoiding confrontation, by not setting a boundary, we are setting ourselves up. So boundaries define what is me and what's not me, where I end and someone else begins. We often worry about hurting another person's feelings instead of protecting our own souls. And if we ruin our soul and our health and our energy, where are we going to live? So there's some tips for healthy boundaries. Number one, it a lot of times takes place within a class or a group where you can talk about your boundary struggles, where you can give and receive feedback from other people about things they've struggled with and ways to problem solve, where it's safe to try out things that may or may not work with other people. So it's important, first of all, know your limits. What will you tolerate? What won't you tolerate anymore? Know your values. What do you value? Are you willing to sacrifice your values for other people? Listen to those emotions and feelings, not reacting. Have self-respect. A lot of times when people have violated our boundaries and we allow people to quote unquote take advantage of us, or we invite that by being overly permissive, we end up feeling disrespected when a lot of times we violated our own self-respect. Have respect for others. Be sure that actions and boundaries and limits we set are respectful with others. Best not set in anger or in the middle of resentment. Be assertive, which is not the same as aggressive. It's one of the things we talk about in boundaries class. Knowing when it's time to set a boundary. Again, being firm. Speak the truth in love. Jesus was very good at speaking the truth in love to the woman at the well. Yet, this is what you've done. I love you, grace, mercy, and don't do it anymore. And those were spoken in great love with a great boundary. Consider the long view. There's going to be days when you give more than you take at work, at home. You're going to feel taken advantage of. But consider the long view when you're setting boundaries. So build your fence, move it to expand your boundaries when it's safe. It's up to you to decide when and where. You have to give up some of your desire to control or to hang on feeling like a victim of your circumstances. But throughout His Word, God continually tells us to take our thoughts, feelings, and actions into account, to set in place a protection over our heart and souls. And boundaries can help us do that. So when we're looking at what's me and not me, where I end and someone else begins, instead of worrying about hurting others, some phrases that may be helpful when someone violates your boundary or space. That doesn't work for me if someone's demanding your time, if someone is insulting you undeservedly in an effort to control you. I choose not to receive that. No is a beautiful boundary. 2-letter word. Ouch, that hurt. Was that meant to be helpful or hurtful? I don't feel like I can discuss this right now. I'm feeling a little triggered and wound up, but you're important to me and I want to be at my best when we have this conversation. Can we set a time and try again? I don't like how what I just said came out of me. Can we have a do-over? That may be true, however, and it's always all right. Instead of saying, you're not going to talk to me that way, because we have no control over what comes out of someone else's mouth. We can just say, oh, that doesn't feel okay. And so again, it's not something that requires a tremendous amount of study. It requires energy. It requires a lot of bravery to set boundaries, particularly if you haven't. So there's a format for difficult conversations that will be posted online that may be helpful, and so I would encourage people, it's a form that you can print out and perhaps fill out with some things that may be useful if there's someone you need to set a boundary with. And that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.